Well, hello everybody, how exciting. So, Stephanie's out of the business today working on some very fabulous concepts for you going forward. So I thought I'd sneak into the studio with Andrew and we would do a quick Facebook Live for you because the next collection that's launching is called The First Sight of Spring. And I have to say that this whole collection takes me back to when I was little. And at the top of our garden, we had not a proper allotment, but like a vegetable patch. Me and my mum and dad would go out on a weekend and we'd plant the potatoes and the carrots and the broad beans and that kind of thing. And it was just lovely out in the countryside, growing your own produce. But there was always one thing, one vegetable that never made it to the table because it got eaten as we were picking them. And I'm going to ask you to guess what that was. Tried it with Andrew this morning, he didn't get it, but I'm sure you guys will. So let me show you a few finished samples to start with of what the design team have done with this, because it's different to the other ones again, so you can add in and mix and match, which I love about the Two Red Robins brand. It's almost impossible, in fact it is impossible to make a bad project, and everything that's been before and everything that's going forward is going to work with everything. So you're just adding extras all the time, so your projects can get bigger and better, which is lovely. So we've got this fabulous potato sack with the seed potatoes, which I think is just lovely and very, very cleverly designed. And I'm going to show you a few different ways of using them as well as we go through. Then you've got another, I'm just going to flick through them because I can't see what you can see right now. So I'm just going to show you the inspiration. And I know the design team get really excited when they get a collection sent. And we get even more excited when we see what they've done with it, because every crafter crafts differently. You might admire somebody else's style, and I admire a lot of other people's style. But when you try to do it, because it's not your style, it doesn't quite look the way you think it will. And I learned a long time ago to just be confident in your own style and your own ability and do you, because you can absolutely use techniques and ideas from other people, but put your spin on them, because then they come from your heart, not just copying what somebody else is doing. Not that there's anything wrong with that, but it's nice to add your personality, I think, into projects. So those are a few, and I'll show you a few more later on. And I just want to start with one of the backgrounds that's on here. And I love this moody sky. It almost looks a little bit stormy, doesn't it? And yet it's brighter down here. So in my head, the spring storm is moving away and the sunshine is starting to come out in the foreground. Now, we have this die here. This is one of the web exclusive dies, and it's all silhouettes of birds, which I think is super, super clever. They're all in flight, so they're different to the ones that we've done before, and I just think they're an excellent addition to this collection. And just before we start to use those, I'm going to show you this, because this is the other one. This is the other web exclusive, and you've got these hand tools, gardening tools, and this reminds me of going to my grandma's and going in my granddad's workshop or the garage with him, and he had like this wooden trug, if you like, that was full of these tools that his dad had passed down to him, so my great granddad. And it just brings back that memory. And look at the beautiful colours that we've got. It almost looks like they're rusty and they've started to oxidise. Very, very clever. So it gives you that really outdoor, earthy, back to basics, organic feel to it, which is fabulous. So I thought what we'd do is just bring in one of our viewfinders. And again, as Stephanie does, this amazes me, because you could start right down here and it could be an Easter card, a nice spring summer day. The daisies are out in the fields, it's growing at the side of the road. And then as you move it over here a little bit and move it up, you can take it up a little bit higher. The highlights that have been put on the side of the fence posts, just to give that impression, that illusion that there's something there. Take it a little bit higher and you're into the taller fence post with the wires coming off it. And then over here, you're bringing the wire right the way through. So you know there's something else over here, but you've got more of that moody sky. And then let's have a look at something else that's in the collection as well. So we have this fabulous bird's nest. And I need to show you this. So I'm going to die cut this and show you how you use this die, because it's very, very clever. But you could have that just at the bottom here. And what I love about Two Red Robins is they absolutely we talk about perception and depth and dimension all the time, but it's not all to scale. And I think that's what makes it a little bit quirky, and that's what makes it work. So we've got those, and then we've also got like these stones. Now this takes me back to our back garden now, because we've got loads of things like this in our back garden, because my husband is a stonemason. So he brings stone, he collects it. Sometimes it does look a bit like a builder's yard, I'm not going to lie, but he does love stone, and I have to say I understand why, because it's beautiful. Some of the striations that you get in there are just incredible. So you could have, you know, just a pile of stones at the side of the nest, and then we could bring in, let's have a look what else we've got. They've got this fabulous little robin that could just be stood at the side of the nest there, and then we've got these little speckled eggs that could just be on the ground like this, and you start to build your scene. And then we've got some, we've got these tools, so we could add a little bit of height into here with these tools. So we could tuck one behind like this, and I'm thinking about maybe more masculine cards on this one, because I think it works really, really well. We could have another one stood in front like that. We could have the little hand fork just tucked in behind there. But you know what's going to make this really work is some of these little birds that we've got here that are just going to be flying in this background. So you can have one that's just taking off from the wires there. You can have one that's coming from behind the stones, and then you could have one going through that stormy sky. And how fabulous would that be for your granddad, your uncle, your brother? You know, just really, really clever design. But if you want to make it a little bit more feminine, we've actually got these potatoes. I know you're thinking, potatoes, Melanie, what are you talking about? But on the potatoes, you've got the potatoes at the bottom, and then you've got the beautiful flowers behind. So if you tuck that behind, it becomes another floral element. Let's take another one, and let's pop one up here. So we took it behind here, so we're not seeing those potatoes. We are just using them as the flowers themselves. And then we also have these fabulous pansies. Now, they come in different colourways. The purple one is the free one that you will get with your collection, the free download. And then there are different colours that you can add in just to add that pop of colour there. And I always go for 3s because it balances. It creates what we call that little design triangle that you've heard me talk about a lot. So just a little one around there. How fabulous is that? And I don't think I've ever, well, I know I haven't, I've never ever worked with a brand where everything just works together. And it doesn't matter whether you bought it last May at the beginning of the journey, or you're going to buy it next December when we're almost, you know, nearly 2 years in. It doesn't matter, because it's designed by Stephanie and her team, crafters, and we're all involved right the way through the process. And we're like, oh, we could just do with a little flower there, or it could just do with some silhouette of birds. Now with the birds, just a note on that, you don't get a reflection with that, because the idea is that you cut them out of black card or brown card if you think the black is a little bit too harsh. And you're then left as well with this fabulous stencil. So if you wanted to just take that and very lightly just add some ink around your viewfinder, that would work really well too. So I think it's a really lovely, lovely collection. So I wanted to then build you another scene, but before we do that, I want to show you something because it blew my mind. And I didn't know, because I've only recently joined Highlight, I didn't know what the concept was of this. So when I looked at the dies, I was like, okay, how's this going to work? But I'm going to show you this. Now I have asked Jess, who does a lot of the design, one of the graphic designers, to change the reflection. So you've got a page that still has all this on, but it has 3 of these. So it has 3 with the birds in, coming down in a row, and then another one that has 3 without the birds. Because if you want 2 of those, you've got to print off 2 full sheets. So from a craft perspective, I've asked her to change that, so that will happen as well. But I want to talk to you about the dies because they're quite unusual. So you've got the bottom of the bird's nest. You've then got the top of the bird's nest, and that slots in there like that. There's not a link system. It's not joined. It just literally slots in, which I think is super, super, super clever. Let's get my scissors. Forgot my tweezers. There's always something, you know, when you're in your craft room and you think you've got everything out, and then there's always one thing, isn't there, that you forget. Well, there is with me. And then we've got this extra piece here. I'm just going to slide it off the table because that's easier. That's got the birds' heads on, so it looks like they're inside the nest. So you've got two options. Now, I'm just going to remove this one so that I can show you this, because this is where it's clever. So where you look here, where these points start there, it kind of is like a link system, but not as obvious, as in the circle isn't, you know, as obvious, but I'll show you where it is. So all these lines down here are your detail lines, and then your actual cut line is just around the edge. But if I bring both of the other pieces in, you can see it continues with your detail lines down here, and then your cut line continues around the edge. There is a little part of it that will keep it in the card, so you'll need to snip it out, and that's because you've got the versatility of two dies. So it's a little bit of a, you have to, you know, just think about it a little bit more, or get your scissors out and snip it, but it's worth it to have those different options, I think. So let me show you how it works on the reflection. So I'm just going to line the die up. Now line it up so that the tab there is lined up with the tab that's actually on the reflection itself, okay? And then we're just going to slot this one, so this is the one without the birds on, and that's going to slot into there. So what I wanted to show you is that the bottom part here, you will not have a bleed coming out, but the top part here, where the little sign is there, where the little label is, and coming around the top of the edge of the nest, you will. So what I don't want you to do is line it up so you've got an even bleed all the way around, because you won't get one. All right, so pull the die right down to the bottom of the reflection, and then you'll have that extra bleed around there. So I'm actually going to put this through the die cutting machine so that you can see what it's like when it comes out. So I'm going to tape it into place, and it's important that you tape your dies down because you don't want them to move. There's no point, for the sake of a little bit of tape that you can use over and over again, you might as well use it to get a perfect finish. And I would load up a whole set. So I would do the nest, the robin, and the little eggs. And it's nice to have another robin back in here. I have to apologise because I haven't learnt all the names, but when the collection is released, then you will be able to see them on the website, won't you? And we always love to see your work as well. So please don't feel, you know, like you can't contact us and send us pictures and things like that, because we get really excited. And you know what? It doesn't matter whether you're doing this professionally in the industry or whether you're a crafter that crafts just because you love it. We always inspire each other. It's not a one-way street. It's very much, you know, a whole family that inspire each other with their creativity. So I'm going to pop this with the die facing up on my mat, and because it's quite a wide die and there's a lot of detail, I'm using a piece of cut tidy. Okay, and I find cut tidy better than a card shim, and I'll tell you why. So let me run this through. So cut tidy is one of the most innovative products, I think, to come out of the craft industry in a long, long, long time. And it's probably about 5 or 6 years old now. And it's a plastic. So when you think about card, all card is made up of lots of fibres. Some are very tightly packed, some are quite open, some are long, some are very, very short, which is why you get a different feel and texture to lots of different cardstock. But it's you can tear it easily. So if you use that as a shim, what you would have to do is tear the shim rather than having straight edges, because a straight edge with the pressure of the rollers would leave a mark on your die cut. Plastic, however, you can't tear. So it's difficult without a metal shim that comes with some die cutting machines to cut through plastic. In fact, it's impossible if you don't have a metal shim, unless it's a steel rule die. So with a thin metal die and a metal shim, you can cut through plastic. But because we're putting the plastic in as a shim, it's not going to cut it, because there's not enough pressure to cut it without the metal shim. So it stretches the plastic, but it acts as a shim, and it's denser because it's harder to tear. And it seems really strange when you think about it, because a cardstock is thicker than a piece of plastic, but it's the density. It's how easily it tears or doesn't. And that's what makes cut tidy really, really successful. And it's a special kind of plastic that's used in the aircraft industry. So it's really clever. So if I turn this over now and I just remove my die from here, just remove the tape at the same time. You can see that it's cut, but there's two little areas, one there and one there, that just need snipping out. So you then just get your scissors in and just snip, and then you just snip. So I don't want you to think that the die is faulty, because it's not. It's just the way that it's been designed, so it gives you more options. Okay, so that's your first one. And now I'm going to do this one as well. So we just bring our die back in. I'm going to take out the piece that gives me the top of the nest, like that. And I'm going to position my nest back in place. So again, no bleed at the bottom. And I'm lining up with this tab here, okay, this little label. And then I'm going to take the other die that has the birds in it, and I'm going to position that, and it just drops in there like that. And again, you've got that extra bleed around the heads of those little birds there, okay? So I'm just going to make sure that my tape isn't underneath my die, because that will stop it cutting properly, because it's plastic, we've just talked about. So let me just peel that tape back. You'll have to forgive me, my nails are very, very, very long at the moment, because I had them done before Christmas and then I haven't been anywhere to get them done since. I'm trying to stay safe as possible. So I'm going to just pop that over there, and now we'll run this through. And again, I'm going to use my cut tidy. And I think, you know, for so long we were used to having dies that didn't cut through in one pass, and we shimmed them and we did all the rest of it. And then when dies got better, and the way that dies were made got better, and the machines and the pressure in the machines got better, we didn't always need that shim. And it's almost like you only use a shim if the die isn't good enough and it doesn't cut through, and that's absolutely not the case. Cut tidy just gives you that really clean finish. And actually, cut tidy wasn't meant as a shim, it was meant to keep your dies clean when you were cutting. So the really detailed, intricate dies where you've got a lot of waste, the idea was that you put the die in, or the card inside your cut tidy, you die underneath, and it kept all the waste inside the cut tidy. But it's brilliant as a little shim, and that's how I use it all the time. So I'm going to now take this, and I'm going to flip this over for you, and I'm going to remove the tape. Get yourself a good low tack tape. I use the Scotch removable tape. It doesn't leave any residue. You can use it over and over and over again, and it's tearable, so you don't have to use your scissors. Your scissors don't get stuck up with it, it just tears. So if I take this out now, I love this, I think it's so clever, and then just wiggle, just don't pull at it, just wiggle it, because you've got lots of little intricate detail bits there. You'll get to a stage where it just, you know exactly where the pip is, and then you just snip. How many of you have worked out what the vegetable is yet? I can't wait to see who gets it first, because I bet a lot of you are the same. And then just move this out of the way so that you can see it nice and cleanly. Look at that. So you're getting that and that in one day, in one set. Isn't that great? And then you also get the robin and the outside edge for the robin, and you get the little speckled eggs as well. So I really wanted to show you that, because I thought if you just buy the die and you don't understand the concept, and I was a little bit thrown at first, I'm like, what are those bits about? I wanted to show you so that you understand how it works. And then you could cut just, you know, another one of these, and you could have maybe snip the little beak and just add a little bit of decoupage if that's what you wanted to do. So I'm going to pop those dies to one side now, and I'm just going to bring in some of the elements from the collection. So I'm going to just move this over here, and we'll start to have a play. So let me show you what you're getting. So your nested dies in this collection is like this little potting plot, if you like, where you just, the soil in there, and look how clever it is. So this is really good design. You've got the side piece here that's lighter than these here. So it shows you that the sunlight's coming from over here. It gives you that depth and that field of light. Then you've got the darker one at the back, and then you've got another one down here, and you soil, and the artwork on the soil is just fabulous. It just looks like compost. It's really clever. And then the front one, the front panel here, comes over the edge of this one, so you can tell it's definitely the front, and then just extends out a little bit there. But that looks so realistic. The artwork that we get done is just phenomenal, and that's what makes it really special as well. So I'm going to place that there, but we have something that really made me smile, because whenever my dad and my son Matthew, when Matthew was little, were out in the garden, they both wore these little flat caps. And I think it's really cute, and I love the fact that we've got a flat cap in there. So for men's cards, this is going to be absolutely brilliant. Now, what I want to do is put one of the nests inside the flat cap, so it looks like it's been left, it's been forgotten, and the little birds have started to nest in it. So I'm going to take my scissors, and the way that I like to do it is get my scissors in from underneath, so I can see the point of my scissors, and I can see where they're snipping to. So I'm just going to snip that little point there, and I'm going to work my way around, just following the line of that cap. Okay, and just work my way around. So my scissors are coming in from underneath my die cut. You might find a different way that works better for you, but I like to see where I'm going. I'm not good at working blind. So now we've got this little section here that opens up. So we can position that in front, and then let's take our bird's nest with the little chicks in, because I think this is super, super, super cute. And we can slot that right inside there like that. So the little, how gorgeous is that? Look at it. Isn't this just fabulous? And then let's have a look what else we've got. So we've got our stones again, but I might not use those on this one because we used those on the last one. I want to show you this, because this is your sack of potatoes. Look at that. It's just incredible. And I'm going to pop that behind there, which is going to give us some height to our project. Now you could make this into a shaped card if that's what you wanted to do. So if you're making a shaped card, what I would do is cut these out of a solid colour card, like white or maybe a dark brown or whatever you want to use. Lay it out like this. So lay your composition out, and then take your solid card pieces and glue them together to create the back of the card first, and then that will give you an area to, so you know where they're going, where the reflections are going to lay out to create your composition. But always create your composition first, because it's important that you don't just glue things together. Just lay them out without any adhesive, so when you're happy, then you can start to make card. So we've got this bit going on here, and then we also have like this, these canes. And I remember going to the DIY store and buying things like this with my dad and rope to get the runner beans going up and to support the potatoes as they grew, and the carrots, and then he had them in the greenhouse with the tomatoes. And you can still smell, I can still smell the tomatoes in the greenhouse. You know, when you walked in, it was like, it was warm, and you could smell that really beautiful tomato aroma. It was fabulous. And then I'm just going to have another one like it's just been fallen over slightly like that. Okay. And then let's have a look at our tools, because we've got these fabulous, fabulous tools, and everything again just works perfectly together. Just takes me back to my granddad's workshop, this. It's just amazing. And do you know what? There's nothing better than crafting, and crafting with products that evoke memories. I'm going to do a whole scrapbook with 2 red robins from my childhood, because it's so different to my grandchildren's childhood, and it would just be lovely to share it with them, but in a really creative way. Now, this piece is very clever. So these are the potatoes that go in the sack at the back. Now, if you pop them on like that, it works, it's okay. However, if you took it behind, this piece becomes your decoupage layer. So that's why you've got 2 of those in there. So one can slot right behind the other. It's exactly the same shape, and it just slots behind there. And then on this decoupage, the separate bit, you've got like this grey area here that follows around, so it looks like a complete sack of potatoes there. So because we've got potatoes in there, let's use our potato flowers here, our seeds. Look, I love this, and they can be growing out of the compost behind there and just starting to peek out at the side. And then we can have another one. Now, there you are, over here. So we can have another one just tucked in behind there, and they're growing in the earth. So you want to keep them within the compost area there. You don't kind of want them over here. You want them to look like they're growing inside there. But if you want some trailing down here, let's have a little bit of a stone, maybe just a couple of little stones coming down here. And I think this is why Two Red Robins have been so successful, because it's all these extra little elements that make your crafting super, super, super fun. Because it doesn't matter whether you've been crafting for a long, long time or whether you've just started. You imagine if this was the first ever card that you made. Can you imagine? I've still got my first ever card. Yeah, I don't think there's words actually to quite describe how bad it was. But we learn, don't we? And we move and we develop, and that's the great thing. Now we also have this fabulous fence. So as soon as we start to put the fence behind, we're bringing a foreground in now, and everything else becomes the midground and the background. And I thought this was really quite nice. In fact, let's change it. Let's put a fence, another fence there, this rickety old fence, and then let's bring the stones to the front. So let's have one behind, like that, and then let's have a couple of the smaller ones just at the front like this, so you can start to build up your composition. And then let's bring in these tools. And as I said earlier on, you know, it's not about them all being to scale and being the right size and everything working together. It's about the creativity of it and the fun of it and building that different perspective. So you could just have that up there, and then you could have another one just coming. Let's have a look, where can we put these? We'll put these here like they're resting on the stone, and then we'll have this one just tucked at the back behind here, because they're getting the potatoes out of the soil. I'm just going to pop that one down there. Now, how lovely is that as a card for a guy? And if, I'm going to have to do this very carefully. Stephanie's good at doing this. Mine goes everywhere when I do this. If we just hold this down and very gently slide this behind it, holding my breath while I'm doing this. Go on, play nicely. You know you want to. We were talking about this the other day, weren't we, on a Facebook Live? Do we talk to our things as we're doing it? Well, yeah, I do. So, see what I mean about it going everywhere? This is just standard with me. But that's all right, because it's just all part of the process. So look now, when we put this on here, how fabulous that looks. And then you can just readjust like this and have these just coming in like that. So we'll have one straight and one leaning over like that, and then our potatoes will go back into the position. And look how fabulous that looks. So you can make it look really quite busy, or you can have it on a clean background so that you can see, you know, the difference between the two. And when I'm using the viewfinders, I actually quite like to create a viewfinder out of a patterned paper, so out of one of the backgrounds, and use that as my viewfinder, and then use your foundation dies to cut so if you're doing, let's say you're doing a square with a circle in the middle, you'll cut that out of your paper, and then you'll do a bigger square and a smaller circle, and then your background will fit on top of that white one, and it separates everything out. So have a play around with different ideas. So let's just do one more. Let's take that out and let's use a viewfinder again. So we use the oval first of all. Let's go in. See, I come in with a board with everything nice and neatly in piles and laid out. It doesn't last very long. I laugh at Stephanie, but I'm actually just as bad. So then I'm going to, let's do a circle this time. Let's change the shape and let's see what this looks like. It's another oval. Let's grab a circle one. And you know, you can make these yourself if you want to. However, I like the fact that the ones that you can buy come with two different sizes of each shape. So let me show you what I mean by that. For example, let's see, on our rectangles, let me just show you this. So on the rectangles, you've got, that is a different shape because it's a square, Melanie. Genius. Oh, let's do the oval because I've got two of the ovals. I've only got one of each of the others. So if we do this, you've got a smaller one, and then you've got one that fits perfectly around the edge of that one, so it gives you that frame. And it's interesting, you know, when you go out and you look at pictures, so if you go somewhere like the Range or a home store and you look at their picture frames, some of them have a single mat which looks lovely and it frames the image, but then the more you pay for it, you get a double mat. And the double mat makes it look really professional because it looks like you've taken it to a picture framer's. And look at that, just with the fence right in the background. I love the fact that we've got some, you know, really pretty colour in here. So we've got our telegraph post with the wires coming off. You've got little bits of random colour here as well, which is lovely. So a little bit of blue, which ties in here. So you've got your blue here, here, and here. And then you've got your yellow. You've got your yellow and your yellow and your yellow there and your yellow down here. And or even this soft lilac and the pink, there's a small amount of it in the lower area here of this image. And then you go into this really deep petrol blue. So have a play around with your viewfinders. The other thing about these is that are really good is that it's 400 GSM card. So it's nice and sturdy. So if you're building a design on here and you think, right, I like that, it's easier to lift this without it going like that. You know, it's easier to move it to one side so that you can start to build your project. But let's do something quite feminine in this one. Let's bring in some of the flowers again. So I think we'll start with our little chicks in our nest, because I think that's a lovely image, and we'll have this at the bottom here. In fact, I'm going to put it over in this corner this time here. And then I'm going to, sorry, I'm keep being told to stay in frame. I'm terrible. I get carried away and I forget that I'm actually, you know, crafting with you guys and on camera. I'm sorry. I know you'll be sitting, I'm going to move it up, Mel, can't see it. And then let's have a little bit of a fence going on just here like this. And with the big fence, you get the little bits as well. So you get this little extra piece here. So you can have a little, let's put this over here, like the little post at the end, like that. And then you could bring another one of those in and just have a little bit, tuck that one behind so it looks like it's going right behind. So the bird's nest is now inside. So I'm going to lay that there. I'm going to just curve this slightly like that. And then I could snip into this one and use that as decoupage. So let's do that. Let's just, and don't worry too much about where you start, because you don't need all this bit back here. You just need to start at the side like that and just follow it with your scissors, and you'll get to the bits where the little pips are. And we call them pips. They're not like pips like you get when you buy a paper kit. They're little lines, the detail lines, and they just join as they go along. It's the detail areas, but they're put in a specific place so that you can then do exactly what we're doing now, which is snip into it. So now I've got the front of my nest as an extra piece that can then sit on top of there. And that, with some glue gel behind it, will make the little chicks look like they're right inside of that nest. So it's nice to do things like that. It really adds that depth and dimension. I'm going to bring back in my potatoes, and we're going to hide those potatoes behind there like that. And then we're going to bring in another one, and I'm actually going to snip these off this time because this is quite open. If I took it behind, likelihood is that you will still see those potatoes. So I'm just going to pop it round like that, so it's bringing that height in. So I'm going not as high as I am wide, because that's the shape of the oval. So an oval is always shorter than it is wider. Or if you have it landscape, portrait the other way around. So you can see there. And then let's bring in some of these beautiful little pansies. That'll make it really, really feminine. So for Mother's Day, this will be lovely as well. So we can have the little pansies in the front, and we can start to build up our little composition here, our little florals just in the corner. And then I'll take a couple of the smaller ones and I'll just pop these underneath here like this. So we've just got that little area there, and then we've got these. Now I'm going to find a card for you in a minute because I think it's really, really, really clever. And what they've done is they've cut little holes into the compost and tucked these in like the little seedlings, which I thought was super, super clever. And this is why, you know, we have design teams, because Stephanie has a style, I have a style, you have a style, and it's always nice to see other people's ideas. And I think that with a lovely little sentiment maybe up here, or maybe we could have just one of the little birds from the exclusives just taking off like it's taking off from the telegraph wire. I might try and find another one that will work with that as well. Oh, there's a tiny one here. This is perfect. So we can have another one there. And because it's smaller and higher up, looks like it's in the distance, you could tuck it underneath your viewfinder like that. And I think that's a really, really pretty card. And I don't think it needs much else. I think the artwork with two red robins really tells the story for you, but it transports you back in time to when you were, you know, those good old days where there was no technology. You had to go to the end of the road to use a telephone box. You remember, you could go out and play for hours as children and nobody bothered you and you just went off, and it was, yeah, lovely. And that's what Two Red Robins reminds me of. So I think we'll leave it there for now. Thank you so much for joining us. I'll have a look at all your comments and see who got the vegetable that never made its way to the table, because me and my mum and dad used to sit in the garden and eat them. So I will see you very, very soon. Have a fabulous week. Stay safe.